Hello, welcome to the Mediabox. I'm joined by Olivier De Schutter, who is a UN Special Rapporteur on extreme poverty and human rights. Great to have you at the Mediabox today. Across Europe, urban areas are seen as places of opportunity, but they're also seen as places where there are a lot of homeless people, and they're obviously some of the most vulnerable people in our society. How can local authorities strike the right balance between urban developments, but also between the need to ensure important housing for the most marginalized in our society?
I think what you are seeing is a combination of two factors. First of all, we have an increase of the costs of housing resulting from financial speculation on housing, resulting from increased demands on landowners to refurbish the buildings in order to improve the energy performance, resulting also from the development of Airbnb that results in short-term rentals being sometimes much more profitable to the landowners than to put their apartments on the renting market. And all this together, in addition to a lack of social housing, explains the rise of the cost of housing. And that is combined with the fact that wages remain stagnant, that social protection is not always indexed on the cost of living as it should in accordance with the norms of human rights. And as a result, many people are unable to afford housing in cities. Now, that is not incompatible. To treat that issue is not incompatible with urban development. In fact, urban development should be development that has as its chief concern to provide affordable housing to the population, including the young adults who very often today delay the time when they establish a household or have children because they can't afford housing. And urban development should take into account the need to create low-cost housing units for households whose incomes would not otherwise allow them to live independently. The city of Vienna, for example, has created 420,000 social housing units, and that has not only benefited, of course, people in those social housing units, it also has benefited all the population in Vienna, because the price of housing, the cost of housing have been going down as a result of this very strong stock of social housing. So there are ways in which this can be combined. There's no fatality here. But what is clear is that as inequalities rise and as the auctioning process results in some very rich, wealthy households being able to pay high levels of rent, many people find themselves priced out of the housing market, and that results in the worst cases in homelessness.
Well, just lay out for us what truly inclusive and rights-based housing policy looks like. What should it look like in the context of urban areas?
We should start with reaffirming that there is a human right to adequate housing. So it is prima facie a violation of human rights when a person is on the street without a solution, when a person has to couch surf with members of the family or neighbors or friends, or when a person moves from one emergency accommodation shelter to another. That, in principle, should not be acceptable. And the Housing First programs that have been launched in the United States some 20 years ago and are now developing in various parts of Europe start from this departure point, that the first step is to provide a person with a dwelling, a place which that person can call home, and then you provide that person with the kind of training, social support, accompanying measures, job search support, in order to allow that person to be socially reintegrated. For many years, we did the opposite. We said, well, these people are without a home. They are alcoholic, they are drug addicts, they are jobless. We need first to solve their addiction problem, or we need first to provide them with a job, and then they will be able to have access to housing. But we should really reverse this logic. And housing first means you first should provide a dwelling to that person, a place where that person can be safe, and then that person can increase her or his hopes to have access to a job, to have access to training or social support from the social services. So that is, I think, what now municipalities are trying to do. Apparently, this requires that they have more financial resources at their disposal, but in reality, it is much more cost-effective to provide housing first, rather than to provide people with short-term emergency accommodation, to maintain shelters, or to try to provide people with social protection without those people having a place of their own, because that is very difficult and very expensive to do.
Olivier, thank you so much for coming to the Media Box today.
My pleasure.